I'm Janice Liu, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to a special edition of the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. If you have a comment, criticism, or question, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. These podcasts are dedicated to the exhibitors who would have participated at the Vancouver Comic Arts Festival 2020. VanCAF is a celebration of comics and graphic novels and their creators, including an exhibition and vendor fair featuring hundreds of creators from around the world. On this episode, I chat with Janice Liu. The podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. Janice is a children's comic creator and instructor who currently resides in Burnaby, BC. She's the artist of the bilingual comic Chicken Soup and Goji Berries from Cloudscape Comics. Janice's solo comic shorts have appeared in Wayward Sisters, an anthology of monstrous women, Augur magazine, and Living magazine. Her work is often about exploring her Chinese diasporic identity and the relationship between the inner and outer world through fantasy. She's also a creative writing and comics instructor at Place des Arts. So without further ado, here's my chat with Janice Liu. Janice Liu, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Sure, I appreciate your time. So what I normally do to start off the interview is ask the creator about their first comic book. So I'm wondering if you remember, what was the first comic book that you read?
Yes, the first comics that I used to read were the Smurfs comics, actually, except I used to get the Chinese version of them from like the newspaper stand. And I lived in Hong Kong growing up, so every time we passed by the newspaper stand, my mom would pick up her newspaper and I would pick up my Chinese Smurf comics.
Ah, so there you go. So that really got you into the comic book spirit, so to speak?
Yeah, like I just thought the stories were so funny. I loved the illustrations and yeah.
Cool. So I'm wondering who or what inspires you to create today?
There are a few things. I think first of all, I have there are people in the Vancouver comics community who like really inspire me with their work ethic and like their passion for comics. I know you've talked to a few people from Cloudscape Comics. Yeah, people like Kelly Chen, Jonathan Dalton, Kathleen Gross. It's just like really great to see the things they're making and how on fire they are for it. So that's always really inspiring to me. Another one of my inspirations is in fiction, actually. I've been reading a lot of like fantasy fiction by authors that use like Asian settings as their inspiration. And I've been interested in telling like comic stories in that sort of vein. There's the Dandelion Dynasty book series by Ken Liu, and also the Jade War book series by Fonda Lee. I'd say both of those have been really inspiring to me in terms of story. Ken Liu, he's come up with this genre called silk punk. So it's like steampunk, except instead of being inspired by the technology of the Victorian era, it's technology that's inspired by Chinese technology. There's like, bamboo, silk, paper, all of that kind of thing. And just like the mixing of fantasy with a non-Western setting is something that I'm really interested in.
Cool. So I'm talking to you and others under the context of the Vancouver Comic Arts Festival, which unfortunately didn't happen this year. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you were planning to showcase at that particular event.
Okay, yeah. So I was going to have my children's graphic novel there. It's called Chicken Soup and Goji Berries, and that's one that's been published by Cloudscape Comics, which is our Vancouver publisher here. They publish just comics made by BC comic creators. So I would have that. I was also planning to do something, a little more on the merch side. And I'd been playing with this idea of making a wearable comic. So I was working on this silk scarf design that would have kind of like a comic story on it. And the comic would be printed on the scarf and wrap around the design of the scarf, and then you'd be able to like wear it.
Wow, that sounds cool.
Yeah, I got a couple of samples, a couple of prototypes printed, and I haven't been happy with them, so I'm
Oh.
actually glad that I have a little more time to go back and work on that.
Well, I was wondering, I was going to ask, is chicken soup and goji berries available now? And perhaps your silk scarf, will that be available soon too?
Well, the silk scarf, it might take me a little while more.
Okay, yeah.
But chicken soup, you can definitely order it online if you go to, if anyone's interested, Chicken Soup and Goji Berries, it's a bilingual Chinese and English children's comic. And it's written by Naomi Tsui, and I did the artwork for it. And it's about this like Chinese Canadian family. There's 3 kids and their grandmas just moved to Canada. And all the dialogue in the book is a mix of Chinese and English. So the kids, they'll usually speak in English to each other because they grew up in Canada and that's the language they're familiar with. And when they speak to the parents, you can see that they're speaking in Chinese, but they have varying levels of fluency and confidence. But
Right.
yeah, if anyone's interested in that, you can get that at cloudscapecomics.com and go to the shop, and it's in there.
Super. That leads me to my next question about the creative process. I wonder if you could walk me through how you go from the initial concept for a project to the finished page.
Okay, sure. So far on my own, I have mostly done short story comics and short little zines. And I would say, most of the short comic stories I've done so far are in the range of like, around 7 pages or so. So I'll usually type up an outline first in Google Docs, and it'll say like what I want to happen on each page. So it'll be like page 1, this needs to happen, this needs to happen. Page 2. And after I have the page by page breakdown, then I'll break it into panels. And then I do my thumbnails. So I do my like quick little sketch to break down what the layout is on each page. For like my drawing process, I do it all digitally these days. I experimented for a while with doing the inking traditionally because I really wanted to get that hand-inked like brush and ink look. But it was just too much of a time-consuming process to kind of print my sketch out, ink it by hand, and then scan it back in. So nowadays I use Clip Studio Paint, and I do use that for all the way from the sketch to the colors.
Wow, yeah, I hear it's a very popular program and it has everything that you need to get the job done.
Yeah, I definitely really like it. Like, I swear by it.
That's great.
And you don't have to pay a monthly subscription fee.
Yes, that's the other thing too. Absolutely. Then I guess that's it. Once your project is complete, you send it off to the publisher and away you go.
Yeah, pretty much, I guess so.
Cool. Good. So we talked a bit about chicken soup and goji berries. I wonder if you have any other projects on the go that you can talk about.
Yes, I'm currently working on a long project. So I would say I'm definitely, an artist first and foremost, and my writing skills are not that developed. So I started out, first collaborating with someone who did the writing, and then I did the art. Then I branched out into making short stories of my own. And the latest project I'm working on is going to be a middle grade graphic novel. So it'll probably be in the range of 150 to 200 pages. So
Wow.
Definitely the longest thing I've ever attempted to tackle.
Sure. Do you have a timeline for that, or is that just beginning now?
I think that I don't have enough experience yet to say how long this whole thing is going to take me, because the writing stage has definitely been the hardest part for me. So at the moment, I have about 160 pages scripted, and it's very rough and still needs editing. But my goal for myself is to have enough put together for a pitch package to be put together by the end of this year. And I'm hoping to go the traditional publishing route for this one. So I'd like to get it in front of agents and see if anyone's willing to represent it. And maybe one day it'll be an actual published book.
That sounds exciting. Well, I wish you much luck with that. So where can people find out about this work that you have on the go and perhaps others that you'll come up with down the road?
Sure. So the best way to see like my work in progress and stuff is to follow me on Instagram. And you can find me on Instagram at flutterdoodle. So flutter and then doodle. And the other place that you can follow me is on Twitter. I would say I use Instagram more for my in-progress stuff, and Twitter is kind of just, late night shower thoughts or, well, no, but yeah, either of those places. And I also have a newsletter on my website that I'm trying out for people who just want, the occasional update. You can go to janiceliu.com/newsletter. And then you can put in your email, and I'll send you an email whenever I have anything exciting happening.
Cool. Good. Well, Janice, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering if there's something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview.
Well, I'd like to make people aware of the comics classes I offer. My day job, when I'm not drawing comics, I teach art classes in my studio in Burnaby. And I offer these classes for kids like age 6 to, teenager, so 6 to 16, and then adults as well. So if you're interested in, comic classes for your kids, art classes for your kids, you can check out my studio. It's called Young Artists Place. And the website is youngartists.place.com.
Will you be offering virtual classes as well, given the current state that we're in?
Yeah, so that's the thing. I am offering a couple of virtual classes, but for now, a lot of my classes for the fall semester are going to be in person, and we're just going to take pandemic measures. Everyone's going to be spaced apart, and I've lowered my class capacity. But there is a online animation class that I'm offering, so that'll be nice.
Thanks to Janice for the chat. You can discover more about Janice on Instagram at flutterdoodle and online at janiceliu.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter at TrueNorthComics. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2020.